niche. I don't think everyone's going to pick them.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah, I'm not
Libby.
going to pick it up. I'm Libby Emmons. I'm with the Post Millennial, and I'm glad to be here. I am Ian this evening, hanging out.
We got Serge pressing the
I
buttons.
am Serge.com. Looking at this robot over here is interesting.
Beep, bop, boop.
We had him down,
Anyways,
we had him downstairs, and I was like, "Hey Phil, do you want to wear this on the show?" And he's like, "Yeah."
I do. Hell yeah.
All right, let's get into it. So, wow. Here's a story from today. CNN.com reporting Macron says nothing ruled out, including using Western troops to stop Russia winning Ukraine war. I mean, come on. It's fascinating how they'll try to mince up the headlines. They can just say it. NATO is threatening to deploy troops into Ukraine in a direct declaration of war on Russia. CNN, how about this? Macron says nothing is ruled out, including declaring full-scale war on Russia. They don't want to do that because you've got now stories popping up where they say Russia warns of war with NATO if troops are deployed. No. Vladimir Putin is saying if you deploy troops, that would have been a declaration of war on us.
It sure would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it clearly would have been. And also, NATO, I don't know who the person was that from NATO, but there was someone speaking on behalf of NATO.
The NATO chief said
that was the
Ukraine
chief.
will be.
Yeah, in NATO.
joining.
And I mean, that's just saying there will be some kind of confrontation with Russia. Hopefully.
That is a personal declaration of World War III.
Sounds like it to me.
When the
Yeah, it
NATO
sounds
chief
like it to
came
me
out and
too.
said Ukraine will be in NATO, what they said to Vladimir Putin at that moment was, consider yourself at war, and it will not stop until we get what we want.
So I think something important to keep in mind is, so George Kennan, he was a father of the containment policy, right, during World War II. Basically, what created NATO down the road, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And after the Cold War ended, he said the biggest mistake that we can make is the expansion of NATO eastward. That is what he said. The father of the containment policy. That's something to think about. And he said it would cause irrevocable damage in terms of trying to shore up relations with Russia. This is right after, 91, 92. And, he continued to say this into the 2000s. And I think I can't imagine he's still alive, but, that's been very clear. Secondly, how many of these countries are actually paying their 2% of GDP into NATO? Is France and all? No, most of them don't. They don't pay.
It's basically Macron being like, hey, Russia, my friend America is going to come beat you up. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting here as an American be like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into a fight.
So, and that's why, you have the political side of NATO, the political leadership. That's the Secretary General who here recently said, yes, we're, Ukraine is going to join NATO. But look, there's a military component to this, which we make up the mass amount of it. These folks can't even spend 2% of their budgets on defense, which they are treaty bound to do. So why would we go along with any of the other treaty obligations if the other ones are not being met? Donald Trump has said this multiple times, and everyone freaked out. Like, what is he talking about? This
Well-
makes all the sense in the world.
European countries are basically vassal states for the United States empire.
Well,
So we want war, and we're going to push, they're going to do what we tell them to do.
Well, they had a great deal post-World War II. We subsidized their security so they could have social welfare programs. So that's
Yep.
basically what happened. NATO was the umbrella of security. Then they rolled socialism into the countries, and now we're going to have to show up and, protect.
Didn't they also go through substantial disarmament in Europe?
Yes.
They haven't been manufacturing munitions. They haven't been manufacturing any weapons. They have instead let what they have, rust, and they haven't made anything new.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's NATO. That's us and the UK and like 10 troops from Slovenia and 10 troops from Croatia and this and this and that. France obviously has a sizable military component in this, but Turkey's in it. What does Turkey think about this? I'd be curious to know that. They are a NATO ally.
Have you looked at the NATO map? Man, we are really surrounding Russia on their western front. I mean,
It's
with,
rude.
yeah, with Turkey to the south, with Finland to the north, and now the last barrier, you've got Belarus and Ukraine, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some people that have talked about even expanding this to countries like Georgia, where you had break-off territories, South Ossetia and Abkhazia during that war that took place. But NATO served a very clear purpose, and I think it can continue to serve a purpose.
But they gotta pay.
Yeah, I mean, these folks got to pay up. They have to pay up. And, you know, the terrible thing in all of this, and this has been reported, and you all have talked about this, is that there was a peace offer early on in this, and that got scuttled immediately to put us in the position we are now, which I think is completely unfair to the U.S. taxpayer and citizens, that we're going to bear the brunt of decisions and statements that are being made by some foreign country who's actually not going to have to do much with it.
Oh boy.
Look, I mean, the whole interview that Tucker did with Putin. I was watching the Lex Friedman interview with Tucker today, and they were talking about the fact that Riley brought up Putin wanting to get into NATO, making comments about we could align against Iran with Russia. Now, I don't know how truthful this is, but it seems like a whole lot better than a nuclear war with Russia. The entire time that, well, since at least 2012, there's been all kinds of CIA operations in Ukraine. The whole issue with Ukraine and stuff is heavily influenced by NATO and by the United States and by the intelligence apparatus and stuff. None of it's actually organic, and this is only causing more problems for the whole of the world. Like, why not be, why not align with Russia? Granted, Putin's not a good guy, but it's not like,
Well, Zelensky's not a good guy.
Yeah, I
either.
mean, we
There's so many not good guys out there on the political landscape globally.
if you
Is there a
imagine that
single
we
good
only
guy?
align with good
I don't
people,
see any
it
good
is
guys, in
a childish.
fact.
It is a childish way to look at the world, to think that the only people that the United States are going to align with are quote unquote good guys.
Also, there's no
Childish way to
basis
look
for
at the
what
world.
good
I can only
means.
imagine what weird little dinosaurs you're looking at right now.
Right? It's very bizarre. It's weird to interact with you like this, Phil. It's
Yeah, I
very
mean,
weird.
look, Phil's right. Yeah, obviously.
He's taking them off?
Yeah.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. Please do. Thank you.
It was fun while it lasted.
I mean, look, obviously,
glad.
Putin is not a good guy. I got that. The world's full of bad guys that, and guess what? The world's also full of hard choices for the United States. And look, I feel bad for what is happening to the people in Ukraine. There's no doubt. I mean, it's awful what is happening. But let's be realistic in terms of like the ultimate objectives here in Ukraine. Is it the total defeat of Russia and deposing Putin? Is that our strategic objective here? No one's really articulated that to me. Is it just continue to provide armaments till some type of peace settlement?
Nah,
I don't know.
I think NATO's plan is the full and total subjugation of the Russian nation.
Well, and if it is,
It's a huge nation. That's a bad plan.
yeah, look, I think it's like 8 time zones or something like that. And the issue that
140 million people.
Yeah, and the issue that we're going to have is who's going to be doing the peacekeeping operations and stability operations in that country when you have 20,000 loose nukes running around. That's going to be us. We're going to be doing that. Do you think Macron and France are going to show up and secure that? How many places are we going to get tied down while China continues to grow and strengthen influence and power?
You know where the real war is going to be between the West and Russia?
Is there a South Park reference here?
No,
I know. I mean, if you think about it, like that's the fastest way to get to the United States from Russia is over the
Russia is going
Yeah.
to war with the U.S. It's not going to waste time with European countries that don't make weapons.
Right.
If it really is going to be coming war, Russia just goes over the North Pole.
That's
And
the point.
I mean, Russia's proximity to Canada is it's very close.
Yeah, I mean, they even have
Yeah.
a prison north of the Arctic Circle. That's where they were keeping Navalny and whoever else. The what is it? The Arctic Wolf prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a miserable sentence that must be. Go
What
to the,
is-
go to
going
the
to the
Arctic
Arctic
where
wolf?
it's where
The
it's
Arctic
it's
wolf.
dark for.
Isn't that where Solzhenitsyn was up there in Siberia? And he talked about, in Gulag Archipelago, he talked about like eating prehistoric frozen salamanders and stuff.
I don't know that he was in the
Yikes.
same one, but he
No,
was
but
definitely
he
in
was
there.
he was up there in
was
the
up there.
frigid cold
Yeah.
with the frozen creatures.
So, we got Google Earth pulled up right here, and it's like, I'm half kidding about the Canada stuff, but Russia, I mean, Alaska's right here.
Yeah.
If there's war, Russia is basically next to Europe and next to the United States.
They're gonna go right through Sarah Palin's front yard.
Right? She'll be able to see them.
Yep.
Could you imagine if like Russia conquers Canada? I don't know how much I
no.
would care.
Oh, I like Canada.
Yeah.
I like Canadians.
I like Canadians too.
A lot of moose, though. You know what I mean? I don't know how. I don't know
We
how,
still have a
how I
bunch of
feel about those
Canadians at
moose.
Post Millennial. And,
Cue,
and love
cue
them.
the Blame Canada song.
Hey, I mean, I think we should take Canada first if it's going to be over Canada.
Right? I mean, yeah.
I mean,
Seriously.
here's the crazy thing: is like that's a possibility. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even
It's a lot of
joking.
resources, man.
Let's say, you know, whatever the propaganda is, we go to war and it's World War III. U.S. troops will immediately be in Canada. Because Canada is right.
We'd have to be.
It's separated by a small by a relatively small distance, and Alaska is the Bering Strait is almost touching Russia. Russia has very direct access to the United States and to Canada. U.S. troops would immediately be stationed in Canada.
Yeah. I wonder. I mean, and this is far fetched, but like the way that the Canadian government is going, if they don't make some significant changes, there is a possibility that they become. They're currently the most authoritarian country in the Western Hemisphere
Even
that I
yeah,
can think of.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen recently in Parliament how they're discussing like if they can say the word fart in Parliament and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Whoa,
They've
whoa,
got, like-
whoa. Family-friendly show. What are you doing here?
Take it easy.
They've got online censorship ads.
Authoritarian country in the Western Hemisphere
Have you
Even
seen
New-
that I
yeah,
can think of.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen recently in Parliament how they're discussing like if they can say the word fart in Parliament and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Whoa,
They've got, like-
whoa. Family-friendly show. What are you doing here?
Take it easy.
They've got online censorship ads.
crazy.
They've got like
Crazy.
prison terms for hate speech. I mean, it's all insane up there in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a little far to say that they're the most in the Western Hemisphere, but they're likely
Well, you've
up
got
there.
Venezuela.
It's
Yeah,
not
like, they're
crazy.
not great.
It's just in my head. Look at this.
Not
Look at
amazing.
So maybe they're not
the champion not busted.
Canada might be a little bit related. Who
I
knows?
mean, you know, lately Cuba's been relaxing, if I understand correctly, and Canada's been tightening up a lot. I told
That's
friends
legal
of
for
mine,
sure.
Look, if you need a place to stay and you want to go ahead and run south, it's not that far to my place in New Hampshire.
Oh, that's not bad. It's a nice offer, yeah.
I will be hiding Canadians from the Canadian Mounted Police and Canadian Mounted
For
Police
sure
come on
illegal.
my property. I will shoot at you, police.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. That's a
So-
joke. That's a joke.
To help calm things down, you know, we're in this time where we're very scared we could be escalating to World War III. The good news is we
Champion
have
is for sure
good
illegal.
leaders of sound mind. From the sun.co.uk. NATO would crush weak Russia, and Putin knows it.
Oh my
That's why we are not on the cusp of World War III, says UK defense chief. Well, okay.
I think we look pretty weak and pathetic, frankly.
Oh, today we just saw that the army is down
Down
cut
24K.
24,000 people
Yeah.
or something like
No,
that.
jobs. They're cutting the jobs because there's
Yeah.
no people to fill them.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're just getting rid of the. And I'm not sure what the jobs are. Obviously, I don't have like the inside track on it. But
There's a lot of
24,000
civilian
people.
jobs in the army.
24,000 people out of. I mean, your volunteer army is less than 1 million now.
And they can't get guys because they hate white people, and white people are typically the ones who join the military.
I think that's wrong. I think there's a large population base from which to pull to fill those jobs.
Yeah,
Illegal
you know what's
immigrants.
interesting about all of this
That is
is,
a pathway to citizenship traditionally.
can you imagine
They have that bill.
Yeah.
It's in play. Courage to serve.
this type of rhetoric that we're hearing right now? You know, we'll crush Russia, this and that. During the Cold War, we were very careful about the language that we used as it related to the Soviet Union at that time.
I remember, like, Ronald Reagan would set people like their hair on fire. They were like, "What did he say?" Like
Yeah.
wigging out.
And guess what? They have basically the same amount of nuclear weapons then
Yeah.
as they did now, slightly less. They actually have more strategic nukes than we do. Thanks, Obama, for the START treaty.
And then it fell apart.
Yeah, thanks for that one. But
And it's if I believe them anyway when they're like, yeah, we'll take apart our nukes, put them in the back.
yeah, well, the crazy thing when they were redoing that treaty is that it addressed strategic nuclear weapons and not tactical, and they have like a 10-to-1 advantage on us on tactical nukes on the European border.
And so explain the difference. We're talking about like nuclear artillery and battlefield nuclear weapons.
Right, so it has to deal with how many, so the size of the weapon and then also how far it can go. So think about an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBMs, those are strategic nukes. They typically have MIRV technology, multiple independent reentry vehicles, so they'll break into different warheads and target different cities.
One MIRV can hit the entire eastern seaboard.
Yes. Yes. So the tactical.
And they've got what, like thousands.
Yeah, I mean they have like close to 20,000
Of MIRVs though.
of strategic nuclear warheads.
Right. The MIRV specifically, I think it holds between 8 and 12.
It can hold up to 12. Yeah.
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 And you think
Tactical though is artillery pieces
Right.
and
100,
things like that.
like 100 kilotons.
Yeah,
with
something
one-
like that.
That's
It's
crazy.
with
yeah.
one MIRV, they can do like a lot of bombing, but their actual operating procedure, if I understand correctly, is to have multiple nukes go to the same target because they want to make sure that it gets wiped out.
The crazy
It's
thing
not just
too
one.
is they do not detonate on impact.
No.
They detonate over the city to maximize the blast radius. Crazy.
It's
Yeah, because thermonuclear weapons really comes down to heat,
Yeah.
right? And it's about vaporizing.
The crazy thing is, I learned this. I did this video for Discovery like 10 years ago almost now, and the radiation in nuclear weapons is intentional. They do not need to leave nuclear fallout. There are nuclear weapons that have low radioactive yield. However, they were like, we kind of want to make the land inhospitable for decades to thousands of years.
Yeah, I think thermonuclear weapons actually have less fallout than like a fission weapon versus the fusion weapon. The fusion weapon has. far
Remember when
less.
New York did that duck and cover drill a couple of years ago? Like,
was it years? Yeah.
yeah, it was a couple of years ago. They were like, if there's a nuclear explosion in New York City, stick towels under your doors, cover your windows, and duck and cover. And everyone's like, why are they telling us to do this?
You're
It's like,
super-
well, listen, my friends, I got to tell you something. If you're living in a city and you haven't bought chickens by this point, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Yeah, probably
you
a
know.
better drill would be put your head between your legs, kiss it goodbye.
a better, hold on, but a better drill right now would be get away from high priority targets and buy chickens.
Yes.
Now you probably want some goats. You got to learn how to do all that stuff. We just sent a good portion of Cocktown to, let's just say, to Rooster University. So we're having the first annual, Timcast's first annual Cockfest on Friday,
Damn.
where we are all going to enjoy consuming the roosters. That's right, they're all dead.
Wow.
Put them.
We spared 3 of them.
Come to snuff the rooster.
Are you-
Come
what,
to snuff the.
what kind of dishes are you gonna make?
All
We're
cock.
We're gonna do chili,
Uh-huh.
pulled barbecue rooster, and I think we're gonna do some like just regular rooster. You got to cook it a special way.
Yeah,
'Cause it's
you
tough
could do
meat.
coq au vin.
It's
Great.
tough meat.
It's like braised, like this French braised.
I'll come by and have some rooster.
It's really good.
I really was just excited to let everybody know that we butchered them. 3 of them have survived. It's Mr. Mutton Chops. He got to live because he escaped several times.
Nice.
And so we honored his strength and resilience.
Showed some promise.
Pom
Yeah.
Pom, who is this massive poofy rooster who's goofy, really goofy looking, and we're like, well, you can't kill him. And then Roberto Jr. is one of his sons, because RB3, Roberto Beeks III, is the current heir to the throne. However, it would
we
be
gotta keep the legacy going.
Roberto Beeks III is the current heir. Roberto Sr. is still alive. Roberto Jr. died in a heart attack, and the risk is if Roberto Beeks III passes, then then the bloodline is broken.
Yeah.
So we had to keep at least one of his brothers alive. Yeah, we can't let the bloodline break. I mean, Roberto Jr. is he was the prince who became king, and he died.
He's the legacy rooster.
But all joking aside, the serious question is, I don't know how many stories need to be placed on news headlines in major publications screaming at the top of their lungs. You've got Germany, Sweden, you've got China, you've got Australia, all these countries talking about civilian defense forces. You've got Houthi rebels bombing cargo ships in the Red Sea, shutting down the majority of global shipping traffic.
God, she's blind.
You've got Israel, Hamas. You've got China, Taiwan. You've got Putin saying he will use nukes. You've got France saying we will send in troops to defeat you. You've got Chuck Schumer saying we must win this war. And now you have another story from the Telegraph. I don't know if I have it pulled up. They said we have to win before November, otherwise World War III will officially begin. Surprise, surprise. Just in time for the election. But with all of these headlines, at a certain point, a person might put down their pretense and say, maybe prepping's not so bad.
Look, I'm not going to get super involved in telling people what to do or anything, but the dollar is only becoming less valuable if you buy things that last and that you can use in emergency situations and stuff. You're getting the most out of your money. If you don't own guns and ammo, At this point, I mean,
Oh, okay,
come on.
Phil. Bezos, Zuckerberg, selling off billions in stock.
Yeah.
I think Zuckerberg did billions. It might have been. I think it was billions. You've got Quiver Quantitative posted this video where they talk about, I believe it's Senator Tuberville. Is he senator or is it Congress?
A senator.
Senator.
How he's got a great track record in Congress, and all of a sudden he starts selling a whole bunch of stocks. There's no pattern. He's just dumping stocks. So you got to wonder about what is going on that's making these
And what they
powerful
know.
elites.
Yeah,
and Zuckerberg building a bunker in Hawaii with Wagyu beef.
Yeah.
He's got cattle, Wagyu cattle he's raising in Hawaii. Look, we've been getting stories for a while about the ultra wealthy building these underground bunkers, and I'm like, guys, you've got them saying we will send NATO into Ukraine, which is a full-scale declaration of war with Russia. Russia saying if we are threatened, we will use nukes. Maybe they're all lying. Fine, whatever. Then don't buy your chickens. I'll buy the rest of them. And if, push comes to shove and the ish hits the fan, I will be living in a van down by the river with some chickens being raised just, outside, and I will be eating them.
In a van down by the river.
That's right. Look, I got a van. It's solar. It's got solar power. We haven't used it in years. It's just been sitting. We get it tuned up every once in a while. We're gonna redo all of it. I talked about this on the Joe Rogan show with Dorsey. I was like, if you guys keep doing this, the tensions in this country are gonna boil over. I'm gonna build a van and have that thing ready to go live in down by the river. And when the world falls apart and the cities are in decay and the urban liberals are eating each other quite literally because there's no food or water, I'm gonna be sitting in a van playing Spelunky on a little TV, with air conditioning.
There you go. And to Phil's point, if you don't own firearms, go get some. Go get some ammo. I mean, and to Tim's point, look, for me, look, I hunt every season. I'm able to harvest a ton of venison. Usually lasts me close to a year sometimes. We're still eating through it. It's wonderful. It's very healthy. Everybody goes to Whole Foods for, grass-fed, organic, blah, blah, blah. These guys, deers are that. And
There's
it's
too
free.
many of them.
And it's free. And there's too many of them.
Yeah, we had like 20 on our lawn last year. It was nuts. And I'm like, what are we gonna do about
That'll
this?
only last for one season, though.
Yeah.
One season, there's too many. The next season, good luck finding a deer.
Yeah,
Really?
like
Oh, yeah, I mean, they'll get wiped out. Think about how many
they will
people
go
around here.
extinct.
Yeah.
They will go extinct.
They get wiped out instant, within, because you're gonna have a certain amount of people that are gonna actually know how to harvest them properly and stuff like that, and then there's gonna be literally, a ton of people
wasting.
that are starving that are just, that are gonna waste a ton of
Right.
of meat and stuff because they don't know what to do, so they'll kill it and chop the legs off and be like, oh, I got something for now, and
That's
so.
not how that works.
Go get those back
No.
straps first. But
But yeah, the thing is, now it's like the world is still functioning. Get prepared for bad times while you can. People so frequently say, oh, well, you don't need this or you don't need to do that, or I'll worry about it later. It's like, look, the time to prepare is when everything's fine.
Well, it's
the reason
classic. It's the ant and the grasshopper. It's
Yeah.
the classic fable.
It's gonna be really funny when there's like if/when. Let's say war breaks out, the economy breaks down, social order is shattered to a certain degree, and you end up with a farm out in central West Virginia somewhere where it's not too hilly or whatever. They've created a fort around their property where they're growing a lot of crops. They've got maybe 100 people there, and then one day comes a knock on the door. Some travelers, some wary travelers, and the guards are like, who's there? And they're like, we're travelers, we're hungry, and we're looking for a place we can do work. And he looks down and he sees a young Zizem and a Zizer, and he's like, and what skills do you have? And one's like, I'm an Instagram influencer, and the other one's like, I write movie reviews for BuzzFeed, and he's gonna be
Oh, no.
like, get back, and he's gonna ring the bell like they're here, and then they're gonna chase him off. I'm half kidding, but I mean, in all seriousness, these city people are going to have, most of them have nothing of value to provide, and they won't have the physical capability to even lift rocks.
I mean, think about this. I heard this the other day. I was talking to one of these gas companies, and they've got these new laws in New York as it relates to gas stoves and blah 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 blah.
I hate that so much.
Yeah,
It's so stupid.
It's insane. So just Manhattan alone, if those pilot lights went out, it would take 6 months to relight all of them.
That sounds about
6
right.
months just
when I
in
lived
Manhattan.
in Brooklyn,
alone.
I had a gas stove in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I always had a gas stove everywhere I lived in New York City. Several different apartments, always gas stove.
Now they're banning it.
Yeah,
Banning.
Dude, look,
I don't like it.
the people
Cook
who,
with fire. Just cook with fire.
the
Yeah,
people who
tried and
live
true.
in these cities are living on the good graces of farmers. And and so long as farmers agree to sell their food to the cities, you'll have order. But if at any point farmers got super political and they're just like, we don't sell to you because it's gonna end up down the chain and end up in New York City. If truckers decide to stop sending to New York City, I mean, politics in this country can change overnight. If truckers, just the majority of truckers were like, we don't deliver to New York and Chicago and LA.
Well, you know, it's pretty
over.
interesting because I spent most of my life living in the coast, right? And so in Boston and New York and Philadelphia, you go to the grocery store and you buy spinach, and your spinach is really fresh and it has dirt on the roots. And now I live out here in West Virginia, and I love living out here. But when I go to the grocery store, my spinach mostly is in packages. And I don't understand why my spinach is in packages in the middle
Well,
of the country.
Could it be that they don't grow spinach here and they do grow it there?
Well, maybe they do, but they don't grow spinach in Boston either.
Yeah, but they'll pay a premium.
Do they?
Spinach in Boston?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, people in
But
cities
people
will pay
will
more
have
money.
people will have, you know, hydroponic farms and things like that. Like there's hydroponic farms all over Brooklyn, but those will mostly just go to like the little commie co-ops anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it might be price.
But it's not
related,
just
though.
spinach. It's lots of stuff comes in packages here, and it doesn't
Yeah.
come in packages in New York. And I think it's because it gets shipped in.
Yeah.
And there's Jersey. Like Jersey isn't much further from here. You
No.
know, South Jersey, where all the farms are.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think at some places are probably willing to pay.
Yeah,
a
it looks
premium.
like New York grows a lot of spinach.
They do.
I could be wrong. Let me see if I can find an actual.
There's certainly a lot of farm out there in New York,
no, maybe
Yeah, I
they
guess like
don't.
upstate, right?
upstate and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of dairy in New York.
Yeah.
Everything
no, it's hard to
north of
find
Albany
specifically.
is New England. It's just like Vermont.
Well, it's not as good as Vermont.
It's mostly as good as Vermont.
It's fine. It's fine
It's
out there.
fine.
It's fine. No,
I don't know. Maybe the chat knows where
I'm
what
not
region they grow
sure.
spinach in.
It's a question that I've been having lately because I go into the grocery store and my spinach is in a package, and it's not.
What
in a
grocery
package
store
in
you
London.
going?
I go to all the grocery stores. I try all the grocery stores.
All right.
Well, let's jump to this story from News Nation. Army is cutting 24,000 jobs in revamp to prepare for future wars. Wait, what? You're cutting 24,000 jobs? Okay, now what people don't understand is they thought this was that they were getting rid of 24,000 troops. No. They're saying that there are jobs that are unfilled. As the U.S. Army struggles with recruitment, the series is slashing its force by about 24,000, almost 5%, and restructuring to be better able to fight in future wars. The service is significantly overstructured, and there aren't enough soldiers to fill existing
Jeez, bro.
units, according to an Army document obtained by the AP. The cuts, it said, are spaces, not faces, and the Army will not be asking soldiers to leave the force. So basically what they're saying is these normally would have had jobs, these jobs normally would have been filled by people, but because nobody wants to join anymore, they're just going to get rid of them. Now I wonder why it is that nobody wants to join the Army.
Well, I mean, there's probably multiple reasons. Most of them have to do with politics, I think. You know, the fact that the Army's not supposed to be political.
It's not even the Army, it's all of it. I mean, people have pointed out with this Aaron Bushnell guy. He was a member of some, like, leftist LGBT anarchy thing or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah, he was
He's
like
a
an
leftist.
anarchist.
Lily
and-
Anarchitty.
Yeah.
So this individual was clearly, like, known to people for expressing these views.
He's
and
just a communist.
But you know what I think it is? I think that a lot of serious mental issues are being masked by social justice issues.
I think that's definitely true.
So where
Yes.
if like you go back 20 years and someone was claiming that they were the other gender, like they would not be given surgeries, they'd be given therapy, evaluation, and treatment, especially young people. So now you have someone like Aaron Bushnell who's just, you know, commits suicide while screaming Free Palestine, and it's clearly a mental illness issue. But it was probably obvious to anybody, yet no one did anything. And this is indicative of what the current U.S. services are like. that someone could be clearly unwell,
Yeah.
but it's masked behind social justice.
And the military used to be pretty good about getting people that had some kind of mental illness or whatever. It used to be pretty good about getting people out, and they're not anymore. Like,
Well, because they need bodies, probably, right?
no, well, not only that, I think that it's a lot of it is ideological. That
Interesting.
the
They
the
just offer
wh-
more mental health services.
what?
They just offer more mental health services and all that stuff.
I mean, maybe they do. I mean, sure, they offer stuff for trans people to get surgeries and stuff like that, which I think is absolutely absurd. But
I think so too.
but they're just the culture in the military has changed so much. You got General Miley talking about I want to understand white rage. When you have the majority of people that join up are young men. They're white guys or Hispanic guys are the vast majority, because there's tons of Hispanic dudes in the military. But those guys, they look at each other as normal dudely kind of dudes.
Normal dudely kind of dudes.
That's guys understand.
This is a
But-
great phrase.
Yeah,
I love
like
that.
like they're just guys essentially, and that's the way that they act. That's the way they behave around each other. And you get a bunch of Marines together, and you see it instantaneously. They're gonna try and like climb something, make everything look into act like it's wieners, try and beat the crap out of each other. That's just the way they act. And when you have a culture that is very, very different, the leftist culture is not competitive. It's not aggressive the same way. If you get trans people and stuff, they don't have the same kind of
But that would have.
attitude. And you're going to see people, like, that doesn't attract people that are left-wing or left-leaning politically. It just
Well,
doesn't.
this guy was involved with Antifa too. Andy No was looking into
Really?
this. Yeah,
Yeah,
and he
wow.
said
He's a commie. He was a
found
commie.
that the Reddit account belonging to Bushnell confirmed his involvement in Antifa social networks.
Wow.
And that he was mocking deceased military members and supporting intimidation of elected leaders. And that he was involved with he was a booster of the Stop Cop City, Treehouse Antifa.
Oh,
in
so this is a seditionist.
Atlanta. Yeah.
All of it. He was a revolutionary communist.
Well, Phil just mentioned the word culture, though, and I think that's an important one because there is a massive cultural shift, not just in the military, but in this country. In this country, as
There's
it
a
relates
cultural revolution
as
going
it
on.
relates to public service, serving your country, nationalism, which is like somehow a bad word. I don't think it is at all. Like nationalist feeling, having pride in your country, wanting to contribute to it. That is seen as something that is a negative now. That's a negative in the United States. And,
have to-
and the left has been winning this narrative now for years.
You have to understand that it's a negative because they have managed to reframe what it means, right? So they've taken the word, and this is something that we're very familiar with around here. The meanings of words have changed significantly over the past 5 or so years, and the most obvious, or the one that people are most familiar with, is the word racism. Racism doesn't mean bigotry based on race anymore. It means power plus prejudice. And so you end up with people that will bounce between the two meanings in the same conversation as a tactic to keep people that they're debating with or arguing with off base. You don't understand what they're meaning. The intent is to manipulate.
We
No,
should
you're
change the
100.
word.
And you're 100% right. Look,
What's a good word to change?
look, I say nationalism. I'm sure there's somebody hearing this out here, and they're like, that means racism. It's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It actually means, I consider myself a nationalist. I have pride in my country.
You gotta understand that, like, you're not. You can't. You don't. You don't get to make the call. Like, if you say, "Oh, I'm a nationalist," blah blah, someone's gonna grab that and they're gonna be like, "Look, he's a nationalist," and then everyone that's
Great, put it on a poster.
and that is a terrible move, because they make a term radioactive, and then if you can't internalize it like the way you can with, like, deplorable, right? So deplorable was easy because first of all, it was so many people that were tossed into it. Anyone that you didn't like was tossed into he's deplorable, blah blah blah. There was no association for deplorable with anything in history at all. Nationalism, when you say nationalism, the average person thinks National Socialist, whether we like it or not, and you are not gonna get that back, homeboy. You are not getting that back.
I don't think that. That's not what I think when I hear that.
Alexander
I'm not talking about
Hamilton
you.
was a nationalist.
Who?
Alexander Hamilton
Yeah,
was
he
a
sure
nationalist.
was.
George
Bernie
Washington was a
Sanders is a
nationalist.
So was
nationalist
Lin-Manuel
capitalist.
Miranda when he wrote Hamilton the musical.
Bernie Sanders is a nationalist capitalist,
Every
according to
one
the
of
World
you-
Socialist website.
Every one of you is right, and then they're going to take what you say, clip it, and they're going to play it for Norm the Normie and his wife.
You've been talking to James
Let's
Lindsay.
go.
Yeah, and
Let's
they're going to
go.
say,
Bernie Sanders is a nationalist capitalist. Bernie Sanders is a nationalist capitalist. Clip that. Share with
Yes.
everybody. It's a fact.
But what the point that I'm making is you can't take it back and internalize it and say, "Oh no, we're taking this. I am blah blah," because they're going to clip it. They're going to slime you with racist Nazis, blah blah blah, and there's nothing you're
So
going to be able
what?
to do. There's nothing you're going to be able
So
to do
what?
about it. Well, that
The mistake
if you want
made,
to,
the,
you
mis-
can.
the mistake made by the right is cowering every time someone calls them a naughty word.
That
It's
is
not-
a mistake. It's garbage.
Yeah,
I'm
and-
so
yeah,
sick of
and-
that.
and look,
because on the
and I-
left, what they do is they say, "Oh, you're calling us a nasty word. We're going to reclaim it. We're going to reclaim the word." You know what I mean?
The left always takes the nasty word and says, "You're right. It's our word now."
That's right.
And the right goes,
Did
"Don't
you
call me
say-
word.
did you
I
see
can't
the-
say
the
nationalist
idea
Did
anymore."
you see
that
the
you
Ricky
should-
Gervais joke about the N word? That was funny.
What?
Well, I can't say it because it's the N word.
You have to watch.
Everyone's thinking it. Go ahead, just let it
No,
rip.
you got to watch it because the context,
Yeah.
like his delivery makes
It was
it.
perfect.
Yeah.
Very
The-
funny.
I don't dispute that you should not cower from someone accusing you of something. I'm not saying that you should be like, "Oh, I'm afraid he's going to call me a racist." But it is foolish to say, "I'm going to walk into the trap that they've set."
What trap?
And that's what they've done. They've set the trap with the word nationalist.
No, the problem is we don't
No.
control the media, and we need to break the media narrative control, and that nothing else matters.
This is,
I agree with that.
don't
That's
disagree with that
100%
either.
The only way we do that is to flood the word to the point where their statements don't make sense anymore.
No.
So when they say nationalist means X, we keep saying nationalist over and over and over again in a context that doesn't apply to what they're claiming until someone says, "Wait, what?" But CNN, that doesn't make any sense. And they say, "Oh, well, I don't know what you're listening to. You must be listening to garbage."
I don't.
Yeah, look, I'm for American nationalism. I am for conservative nationalism. I think that is a good thing in this country. I absolutely do. National conservatism, good thing. Everybody should be it. Put my face on a poster. You can put it on there, and I'll win by 60 points instead of 50 in West Virginia.
Yep. The point is this. They say racism over and over and over again. You know what actually started working is they tired the word out. And so people just started saying, "So what?" Shane Gillis ends up hosting SNL. And he made some naughty jokes and they freaked out, and too bad. It's like you have no power here anymore. You've exhausted the screaming at the top of your lungs. So what I'm saying is, say you're a nationalist. Let CNN. Oh, I love this story. Let's jump to this story. Let me see if where do I have this one lined up? It's somewhere. Hold on, let me try and find out where I put it. Is it in the back? Did it close? Where is this? Oh, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, MSNBC yesterday. Pro-Trump CPAC speaker pledges end of democracy. I'd like to play for you this clip from MSNBC, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey, welcome to the end of democracy. We're here to overthrow it completely. We didn't get all the way there on January 6th, but we will endeavor to get rid of it and replace it with this right here. We'll replace it with this right here.
Amen.
That's right, because all glory is not to government, all glory to God.
Here we go.
If I were the Biden campaign, I would pay to have every American see the CPAC convention, because the thing that has been thwarting Republicans in the midterms and since has been this impression of the Republican Party as an extreme party. Yesterday, you had someone stand up at the CPAC convention as speaker and basically talk about we almost toppled democracy on January 6th. We're going to do it now with this, and he held up a cross, basically advocating for theocracy. This is not the image that the Republican Party wants.
This is CNN.
It's hysterical.
Wait, here's more.
Advisor David Axelrod
Look at
with
this.
that message to the Biden campaign after a far-right activist told attendees at CPAC his goal is to overthrow democracy and finish the mission of January 6th, which was met with glee.
That's right, and it's met with glee here on
That's a good
Timcast
pause
IRL.
right there.
This was amazing because no one understood anything that Jack was saying.
The room temperature IQ of the people at MSNBC and CNN brings me great joy. And
Me too.
what we want to do here is continually mock them into sheer embarrassment so that nobody would ever want to associate with them out of fear that they will be belittled or shamed. This is, listen, any sane, rational person heard Jack laugh after the first sentence, and everyone started laughing as well. Okay? If these people want to act like this was, on CNN, I don't think they showed the clip. So they're playing a dirty game like they normally do.
Sure
But if
are.
you ever want to ask yourself why CNN's ratings are apocalyptically low and why they've been, basically about to go under for the past couple of years, look no further. And this is exactly where we need to be. To the point where let me put it this way. In the Trump years, they didn't know what to do. All they knew was complaining about Trump got them views. Millions upon millions of views. Once Trump left, they had nothing to do, and their views started going down. I used to have CNN on 24/7. Back when I was in Jersey, I had a projector screen with CNN on the wall, and I would leave it running for breaking news. But at some point, I noticed something. I was sitting in my room. This has got to be like 2018 or something, and I'm like, reading news articles. And then I look up at the screen, and it's a panel sitting in a circle talking about Donald Trump, and I'm like, whatever. And then I see on Twitter some big news is happening in Iran. And so I'm like, I get up and I look at CNN. It's a panel talking about Trump. So I switched to Fox News. Fox News covering Iranian uprising. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm watching Fox News instead. I eventually posted on Instagram the CNN challenge. Turn on CNN and then switch to Fox News. And what will you find? CNN will always be talking about Donald Trump, and Fox News will be talking about the news. And that's when I was like, off. There is no way CNN could ever get me back as a viewer. What that means is, when CNN got that new boss, and he tried, Chris Licht, when he tried to be like, let's stop being far-left psychopaths, it did not bring the viewers back. Why? I'm not going to come back and watch your garbage. You set yourselves on fire. I'm out. Let's encourage more of this. Who's that? Mika Brzezinski? Is that who that is?
Mika Brzezinski, yeah.
Mika Brzezinski. Let her look at the face she's making. Can we pull that? Look at that face.
Yeah.
Is there a way to zoom in on that face? Can we? We can't make it any bigger.
I had the similar thought though. She looks
I'm gonna-
retarded. Sorry, can I say that?
Yes, you can.
Sorry.
I'm just gonna.
Sorry,
I'm gonna.
crazy
I'm gonna.
lady.
I'm gonna
You can
tweet
say that and you can't say nationalism?
Listen, I am telling you what the left is going to do. I'm not telling you what I want. I'm not telling you my preference. I'm not telling you that I think this is good. I'm not telling you I'm happy about it. I'm telling you what they're going to do. I'm not telling you that I want them to do this.
This is we're every day we are seeing the corporate press just destroy themselves. Let us gloat and mock them. And I think, I was thinking something really, it was kind of obvious to me when I thought about it. Advertisers don't really care that much to advertise to 18-year-olds. They don't have money. And so they're starting to come into that bracket. And so 18 to 35 is the money demo. But on the lower end of things, they're like, well, look, if we want to sell a product, we want to find like 34-year-old men and women. These are the people who are in middle management. They're starting to take over industries. They got cash to spend. Advertise to them. And so I'm like, advertise to 18-year-olds. Send the message to them. That's where we want to be. So we should do everything in our power to direct all of our parallel economic efforts should be advertised towards 18 to 24-year-olds. 10 years from now, when they're 35, they'll be, in our camp. So let's mock MSNBC, let's mock CNN, and mock them and make 18 to 24-year-olds laugh at them. Bring them in the joke and say, hey, look how stupid these people are. And then you destroy them. They will not be able to, look, man, if 18 and 24-year-olds feel that MSNBC and CNN are garbage, in 10 years, they will be out of business because they will have no viewers left.
I imagine that's probably already written to the cards, but that's
perhaps. But I rather enjoy the absurdity. I'm gonna tweet this here picture real quick, just that. There you go. Democracy. There it is.
solid.
I do want to make a point because Jack is right. Is power does come from God, not from government.
It's true.
He's 100% correct.
And you had what was it on CNN where that woman said the fringe Christian right believes that rights come from God or something? Is that what you said?
the fringe Christian right in the literal founding documents, in the literal Declaration of
Those
Independence.
fringe Christian nationalists
but it's
started
not
this
even,
country.
It's not even that. This woman on CNN said something like that, like the fringe Christian right thinks that rights come from God. It's basic moral philosophy as to Whether you believe in God or not, within the nature of existence, there are certain things you can do. And so I often describe it as like, what rights do you have? Anything you can do in the middle of the woods. You can speak, you can defend yourself, you can build shelter, you can do a lot of stuff. But you don't get health care, right? So health care is not a human right.
Right.
You don't get food. Food's not a human right. You know, you don't get anyone else's labor. Ain't nobody there to do it for you.
The difference between positive and negative rights is something that the left has tried to, the difference between positive and negative rights is the difference between actual rights and privileges or benefits provided by government. Right? Negative rights are things that you can do, like Tim says, in absence of government. And then all of your positive rights, they're literally all just gifts from government. So it's literally taking from other people, so that way you can give it to.
Healthcare is a human right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, someone else's labor belongs to you.
Yeah, I don't remember those in the Ten Commandments, which that's literally, right? I mean, look, this is a Judeo-Christian country. That's where we founded a lot of our laws, where they came from, Old Testament, New Testament, a mixture of those. And it's pretty clear, right? And they weren't talking about healthcare or any of these other things, but that is how this country was founded. Obviously, they pulled a lot from different philosophers in Greece and things like that as well. But that it is a foundational piece of this country.
But Prager, Dennis Prager makes the point excellently. Cut flower or cut stem politics. I forgot the phrase he uses, where you can cut a flower from its root and hold it up, and it's beautiful, but eventually it will die. So I look at, yes, the things that most people in this country claim they support, even liberals, they claim to support free speech, but half of them don't. Speedy trials, all of these things are rooted in biblical teaching, and they were adapted in a way, into our government. Then you look at someone like Bill Maher, total atheist, absolutely secular, but still holds these moral traditions: free speech, speedy trials, all of those things that are rooted in biblical teaching. The next step after him is wokeness, amorality, a lack of morals altogether.
Yeah. Well, in this is by no means to say, look, you need to believe in God. People don't, but you do need to respect the values, culture, and norms that have been created in this country by those kind of foundational principles. Now, myself, I am religious, very much so. I'm a very strong practicing Catholic. Not everybody is. That's fine. But the way we got these laws are the way we got these laws. You can say whatever you want about it, but you can't go back and rewrite it. It exists.
Yeah, I think the important thing to understand is the reason why the left doesn't care for the way we see the world is that it is rooted in Christian moral foundations. And that doesn't mean you need to believe in God to adhere to them. Bill Maher opens the door to a lot of bad things, but he does call out the woke periodically. He does believe things that are incorrect, so we can criticize him for that. But he believes in free speech. He believes in a lot of these principles, and it's a good thing, but you can see it fading. And so the far left absolutely despises all things Christian, including the fundamental rights that most Americans believe in. And the problem is, when you separate Christianity from the future generations, you eventually will erase all of the moral philosophies that came with those teachings.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. And even the existentialists talked about that, about how they were erratic, they didn't believe in God, but they were essentially using the Christian foundations as a means to build on top of that, and as a means to declare that there was necessity for personal responsibility. But yeah, when you pull the foundation, the whole thing collapses. It's a house of cards. And the left doesn't realize that. They don't realize that everything that they have been doing is actually founded in Judeo-Christian morality.
See, I have a different take on where the left's whole philosophy comes from. I think that they're counter-enlightenment.
I don't think there is a moral philosophy. I think it's absence of.
Well, that's part of being counter-enlightenment, right? If you're counter-enlightenment, then you don't have to worry about truth. They reject truth, right? They reject the idea of truth. They think that everything's subjective. So the reason that to normal people it seems like they don't have a philosophy is because they don't believe in anything being true. There is no objective truth. We can't even know reality, right? So the argument goes, because our senses have a characteristic, right? We can never actually know reality. Everything that we see and everything we experience is all our brain interpreting what's going on in the world around us. We are forever cut off from reality. So that means there is no reality. That means talking about reality is the wrong thing to talk about, or talking about things that are true, or any of that kind of concrete reality they reject entirely. And so if they reject reality, it doesn't matter what they're arguing, because they're only arguing to try and acquire power or to
and
get to a
that's
certain
what happened
power.
too with Jack's speech last week at CPAC, which was actually really fascinating. He spoke on Thursday, but then he spoke to the full convention on Friday, and I was sitting back, with the rest of the dirty media in the media section. And it was an incredibly powerful speech, and he did talk about the end of democracy. But what he was talking about were all of the things that have been put in place by the Democrats over the past several years that will spell the end of democracy, from mail-in voting, as a big thing, to all of these, I can't remember them all right now, which is annoying, but all of these different things that the left has enacted to destroy the foundations of American democracy. And he was saying, we are facing the American democracy, the end of democracy. Why? Because all of these things have been put in place in order to end it, in order to, prevent Americans from, having their own country, from the decimation of the border to the massive crime to the lockdowns to the destruction of the educational system, the destruction of the, ballot integrity, for lack of a better way to say it, with mail-in balloting and the harvesting and all of that stuff. That's what he was talking about. And so it was so clear, like within 15 minutes of his speech, I looked on Google and it was everybody. It was Newsweek, New York Times, everybody complaining about what he had said without listening at all to what he was saying. It was an incredible indictment of the Democratic left.
One of the best pieces of media that I've seen in a very long time is in Baldur's Gate 3. And that's probably why it's considered, like, I don't know, it's going to win Game of the Year. It's considered this big deal. And I really do recommend, I don't know, if video games aren't your thing, you can just watch or whatever. But there's this moment in the game, it's a cutscene basically, where you find there's this guy named Malice Thorn, and his ideology is rooted in what he describes as absence. That, I'll simplify everything for you. The fact that you can see is the actual cancer, because now you can experience all of the awfulness of reality, and you'd be better off being cured by being killed. And so it's this, I can't even, it's just one of the most amazing bits of fiction I've seen in a long time. The actor, the display, the gruesome, the gore is amazing. He's claiming to be a doctor as he's mercilessly torturing a guy, claiming, "Don't worry, I'm curing you." And I bring this up because it reminds me so much of what the left is. We are helping you as they steal from you. We are giving you, protecting your rights as they rob you of your rights. They are nihilistic, amoral individuals who are assuring you that their morality is the path towards the cure for what ails you, while they destroy everything that is good in this world. Just
I think one of the most salient points, though, that obviously Jack made in the speech, and this is what we're talking about, is power coming from God. The big question that we have here in what's eroded in this country is power versus authority, right? It's power versus authority. In the absence of those things, and power and authority ultimately coming from God, what are you left with? You're left with will to power. Will to power, which is Friedrich Nietzsche, and will to power means whatever you have, I want, and I will take, right? And that's why we're basically left in this situation where there is no kind of moral standard left here to communicate with each other. And it's all will to power. It's, I'm going to destroy you, what you're trying to do, and this and that. There is no consensus kind of, well, maybe that's kind of, above the fray. Maybe we shouldn't do it. But that no longer exists, unfortunately, particularly with the left. And to Phil's point, I mean, really what they are, it's the rationalists, right? They rationalize their own existence, their own
and
gender.
They rationalize their own sin, and they rationalize all of it.
Yes, and it's a self-rationalization where it's like they have to be in constant revolution and change, right? Like,
yes,
and constantly justifying their own depravity.
Yeah, and the gender that they are, and this and that. And at the end of the day, what they're constantly searching for and will never find is purpose. And purpose is the ultimate thing that lacks now, unfortunately, in this country, and which is being eroded further and further. And that's why you see people, going in to getting surgeries and all this. Maybe this is my purpose. Maybe my purpose is to be a woman, or this or that. It's that.
And it's all it's because for them it all comes from
Or Palestine.
Right? That's the new. That's the new thing.
That's the other purpose.
But
And
it
this-
all
and
comes
this-
from this internal place of, narcissism
Yes.
and self-obsession.
I think Israel-Palestine is a really great example of the emptiness of heart that this generation is experiencing. Because, I talked about this with Ian, the members-only show. When he gets into it and starts saying, like, oh, Israel this, Israel that, I'm like, Ian, can you name any other country that has received billions of dollars in funding and was set up by the United States government? He's like, no. I'm like, so the question is, why do you know and care so much about just Israel? I think what did we give, like 180 billion to Vietnam or some insane number, like at that time.
I can't remember.
Not that we're still doing that, and certainly that you're allowed to be concerned about Israel. My point is simply, for someone to go out in the street and immolate themselves over Palestine, a place they've never been to, and when there's so much injustice in the world, why choose this one topic? Well, it's the cause celebre right now of the left, and for people with no purpose, they've found it here now. They can do something.
Yeah,
He didn't do anything, but
And this is important. I just want to, for the audience, and you can Google this, but look, rationalism, the end of the day, means that individual, self-rationalism, they are the ultimate arbiter of what is true. That's why someone's truth is different than my truth, and we don't have common truth anymore, right? Like, somebody identifies as a woman, I'm like, that's a man. It's like, no, I'm a woman. This is my self-realized persona. This is who I am. That's how we've gotten here.
Yeah. I mean, they reject the concept of truth. They don't believe that you can know truth. or
Let's jump to
reality.
this story from the Post-Millennial.
Crazy.
Before I read the headline for you, I have this hope that my long shot conspiracy theory is true. And that is that the deep state is actually setting up an establishment that is so reviled, it forces people to support Donald Trump and will lead to a great American resurgence. That is to say, the deep state is secretly supporting Trump by pretending to support Biden. Why? Because then sane, rational people come out and say, you've gone too far, you're crazy, we need someone to secure our borders, we need to strengthen America, we need to make America great again. And if the deep state actually cared about America, they'd be like, that's the way you trick people into doing it. Because now, headline, young voters 18 to 34 moving to Trump over Biden, Axios poll. Yeah. 52% of respondents said they would vote for the current president over if elections were held today, compared to 48% for his predecessor. When only those who said they were definitely going to vote in November were asked, however, Biden's support rose to 59. The vast majority of those surveyed said the economy, blah, blah, blah. The poll was conducted among a representative sample of 1,073 18 to 34-year-olds. So this is, like the fourth or fifth poll showing, not necessarily that Trump is winning among the youth vote, but that it's become neck and neck, which is
Right.
unthinkable. It used to be 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. Now, young people are actually kind of like, I think I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I want to say this to all the Gen Z and all the younger viewers out there who are watching. If you're asking yourself why it is your college degree won't get you a job, if you're asking why it is you can't afford to get an apartment, the next question you need to ask yourself is, why are Democrats giving luxury hotel rooms to illegal immigrants who just arrived here? And why are they being given debit cards with thousands of dollars on them while you are struggling to survive in your own country where you pay taxes? They promised you things. They said, you go to school, you will get a good job. And what happened? They're giving away luxury hotel rooms to people who just showed up illegally. Ask yourself, do you deserve that? I gotta tell you, in my opinion, you deserve more than that. I believe we should kick all these illegal immigrants out right now and give Gen Z those luxury hotel rooms. What say you, Gen Z? That's a compromise as far as I'm concerned. I was in favor of a form of student debt forgiveness, which would be the termination of all interest, and anyone who paid interest beyond their principal loan, the rest would be forgiven, and any overpayments would be applied to future taxes. The money for this should come from the universities themselves. If you have loans and in your principal, you have to pay back what you were given. But for those who are ripped off and exploited by the system and lied to and tricked, the problem we face now is not yeah, but what about me? That's not fair. I don't care if it's fair. What I care about is we need the next generation to be able to buy homes. We need them to be able to get jobs and raise families. And they're not going to do it being stunted and corrupted by this predatory system. Now, forgiving all the loans doesn't solve anything. I think forgiving the interest and applying overpayments toward as a credit towards taxes or something is a way to go about doing it. That being said, Joe Biden justified the Supreme Court and said he would do it anyway because he is a amoral amoral crackpot. But if we do not have, let me say one last thing. You know, I'm gonna give you my thoughts on the housing market right now. I was telling Riley this earlier.
Yeah.
I believe, and I'm not an expert, I believe that within 20 years, the price of houses will collapse to rock bottom.
You think?
And I'll tell you why. People like to point out how boomers hold a disproportionate amount of wealth in this country, more than most generations ever have. But most wealth is being held in the form of real estate, which means a boomer owns a house worth $400,000 and will sell it to another boomer for $400,000. Maybe there's a wealthier millennial who can afford it and they'll buy it too, but typically it's property held by the older generation. Now, what happens when the boomers start dying? They're going to get older and they're going to start passing away. Children who are millennials or Gen Z will inherit a $500,000 property. Typically what happens in these scenarios is that you'll have a kid who lives in Chicago and his parents were from Maryland, his parents die, and then he gets a phone call. He's like, oh no, my parents are dead, he's sad, goes to the funeral. And then the lawyer says, what would you like to do with your inheritance, which is this house and these accounts? The kid says, I don't want to live in Maryland, I don't want to deal with the taxes, I can't maintain the house, sell it.
Fucking grit.
That'll be a glut.
I got good news for all of you, though. Who can afford, among millennials and Gen Z, to buy a $500,000 house? Nobody! So here's what happens. The heir then says, a month later, did you sell the house? No, nobody wants to buy it. Why not? Because nobody can afford it. Okay, lower it $50,000. A month later, lower it another $50,000. Finally, it sells for $250,000. The prices are going to collapse because the value is on paper based on real estate, which Gen Z and millennials cannot afford.
Well, this happened too with all of the golf properties, right? Like all of like my grandparents' generation, which would have been the ones who lived through the Great Depression and fought in World War II. They all bought like these homes on golf courses, and then their kids, the boomers, inherited these homes, and no one wanted the homes and the on the golf course. No one wanted that. So those prices ended
worthless.
up being worth nothing. But as you were talking about with regard to, Gen Z and millennials and loan forgiveness and things like that, did you see the Washington Post today put out a story saying the economy is roaring, immigration is a key reason. And that's on the same thing. Yeah. That's
Gen Z needs to see this video. Like, share this video with Gen Zers and say, I don't care if you think Trump's a fascist. I literally don't. I don't care if you think he's Hitler number 2. You're allowed to hate the man. But you should ask yourself why it is they are allowing, what is it now, 16 some odd million or 15 million non-citizens, they've allowed them to illegally enter the country. And you might say, yeah, what's the big deal? Well, they're getting your stuff.
Yeah, they're
and you
getting
know what?
all your money. They're getting all your accommodations. They're getting your Xboxes, courtesy of the city of New York.
They're getting your property. And why is it that someone, I'm deeply offended by this, that there's a 26-year-old who should have their own home with 4 bedrooms and a white picket fence, a wife and children. Instead, they are saying, I can't afford this 5-foot by 10-foot box in New York City. And non-citizens are being given luxury hotel rooms. They're being given thousands of dollars in a debit card that we are all paying for. The children of this nation who are entering adulthood and need to be able to raise families and enter society are being barred from doing so. Unfortunately,
this is a huge problem.
many of them are voting for it. So I can't be too mad about people like David Hogg or who's that other guy, the Democrat
There's
Gen Z
so
guy,
many doofuses.
Harry or whatever.
There's a couple of there's that hairy
Right.
guy, and then there's the Asian kid who is
But these kids are all rich. They don't care.
Oh, yeah.
They're taken care of. It's the poor kids or the working class families who are now being told you will never own a home and you will never have a family. But don't worry, 10 million new non-citizens illegally entered the country and we're paying them to do so.
Well, and these kids are told to give up their happiness. They're told to give up the things that will make them happy. They're told to find, you were talking, Riley,
Eat the
about
bugs.
meaning. They're told to go seek meaning in things that are meaningless.
Yes.
And then they are criticized for not being happy enough with their cricket-eating lot in life in their New York City closet.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is also for the left, which, historically we've had labor unions supporting people like Joe Biden, and this mass influx of illegal immigration is undercutting all of their wages. all their ability to be able to even think about collectively bargaining with any company when they just got 1 million people came over the border that are going to do these jobs for like $5 a day. I mean,
and you have though also you have illegal immigrants who don't want to do that kind of work anyway.
Right.
You know, like that's a thing too. They're getting this money from the government. They get working papers, but then that's like what 180 something days later. They're just living for free in these New York City hotels, like Tim was talking about. And the other thing too, for people who go to New York, you can't afford a hotel. Like the other hotels, they're all like $300 a night. It's ludicrous.
I am just so deeply insulted. And I think there's a lot of people on the right who don't. You know, we had this argument about student debt forgiveness, and they're like, no, they shouldn't be given their debt shouldn't be forgiven. And I'm like, well, hold on, let's have a practical conversation about this. What happens if the next generation can't get buy houses? Then like value, labor, like everything starts breaking down. We need to figure out how to get Gen Z into the market. Unfortunately, Joe Biden is burning this country to the ground, and he's taking Gen Z with him. So
Yeah, I feel for those kids.
you know, so what do you do? And you know, with that being said, that's why I'm like, I don't know that real estate is the right store of value right now.
I have no idea what the store value is.
Bitcoin.
I mean, I personally, I don't think Bitcoin's a bad idea. I also don't think that, you know.
What's it at now? 57.
It's pushing. It's looking like it might go for all-time highs in the next week or so. It's like at 55.
It's
56.7.
It's supposed to, based on trend records, hit 200 and then fall back down to like 100 or like 80 actually. So you can look at the Bitcoin trends of every spike. And you can actually look at the hash rate, and you can look at the industry to see exactly why it does this.
The halving is in April, right?
Yeah, so like when Bitcoin first hit 1,000, everyone went, and then it fell down to like 100. Then it hit 20, and everyone went, and then it fell back down to like a couple thousand. 3,000. Then it hit 60,000, and it fell down to 18. This is like normally what happens. Yeah. My thing is always just like, I'm not gonna give anybody advice. I just buy a little bit periodically. But I think the expectation right now is it'll hit 200 and then fall down to like 80.
I buy it regardless.
Yeah, it's just because, I mean, man. Again, no advice, but if you instead of putting money in a bank account, put money in Bitcoin, holy crap. I told this, so Max Kaiser retweeted this clip from the I think it was Culture War podcast with Alex Jones, Luke Rukowski, and Shane Cashman. And Alex was telling the story about how Max Kaiser in like 2012 was like, Alex, get your IT guy in here so I can give you 10,000 Bitcoin. And it was just, it was like $5,000 at the time. And Alex was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Max. I don't know how to do this. We couldn't figure it out. And Max got really angry and was like, I'm telling you how important this is, and like storms off. And then I was saying like, yeah, you know, I had seen, you know, a spike because I could have bought it at 70 cents. And then, you know, I'm hanging out with Max Kaiser in 2012, and he's like, Tim, I'm telling you, you gotta buy Bitcoin. And I was like, yeah. And I didn't. And then, sure enough, it spikes to 1,000, and I was like, should have listened to that guy.
Yep.
And so I will say, fortunately for me, a couple years later, I did end up buying a decent amount. I am very, very happy currently. And, you know, so I was telling the story where in 2011, I had $5,000 in savings that I had never touched. And so I was like, this is for when I'm about to die. Never going to touch it. And so I look at my friend, and Bitcoin was at 70 cents, and I was like, you know, like my plan isn't to spend this money. I could buy some of this Bitcoin stuff, put $5,000 and buy like 6,000, 7,000 coins. And he was like, nah, don't do it. It's probably some scam or something. Some guy's going to sell you internet currency and it's worthless. I was like, yeah, okay. The sad part of that story, that $5,000 I never spent. So that $5,000 savings never went anywhere. If I had just said, I'll put it in Bitcoin, whatever, then it would have grown. And so again, not advice. I'm just saying, if every time you got a paycheck, you put it into Bitcoin instead of the bank, you would be gaining lots of wealth and protecting. Or I should say, if every time I got paid, I just bought Bitcoin instead of putting it in the bank, I'd have an insane amount of money right now. But I just don't do that.
If you have money to live on, and you can go ahead and keep most of your savings in Bitcoin, I mean, again, not financial advice, obviously, but like at this point, it's been around long enough and gone up and gone through the cycles enough to kind of acknowledge that it's not going anywhere. There's ETFs now. Like it's not.
There's
going.
ETFs.
Yeah.
There's banking in like the banking
El
industry.
Salvador.
There's El Salvador.
Yeah, like-
Countries have
I
staked
mean, that's a
themselves
huge
to it.
deal. Yeah.
So
That's
like
a huge deal.
whether or not you believe that it's going to be like a revolutionary technology like people like Jack do, and honestly I do think that there are some of the arguments about the capabilities of Bitcoin that your average person hasn't really thought about. They don't comprehend because most people don't really understand what Bitcoin is. I like when you kind of conceptualize the things that it could do for not just banking but for energy transfer and the electric grid and all kinds of things. It's actually a really impressive technology.
Yeah, we were talking to some folks about trying to set up Bitcoin mining operations here in West Virginia just because we have an abundance of energy and a lot of
Kevin
excess
O'Leary's
energy.
talking about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Building data centers.
Yeah, he came down to Charleston and met with the governor. That was just
Bye-bye, New York.
Just a few weeks ago,
So
actually.
how's that going?
Well, it's going well. I mean, so I'm on the State Economic Development Authority board, so I can't get into too much, but we're having really positive conversations about it.
So we're going
And
to become like a West Virginia economic powerhouse?
I'm hoping.
That
I'm
sounds
hoping.
really-
I'm hoping.
that sounds like a lot of fun to
I mean,
me.
look, we have an abundance of excess energy here that we can help.
What form is the energy?
Coal, gas. I mean,
The
we can
good
have
stuff.
oil. Yeah, the good stuff.
Oil?
Yeah, we got oil. We got all three. So, but coal and gas, which is kind of your base load energy, obviously, particularly coal's base load, nuclear's base load. Gas hits more of like the spike in energy stuff. But we have all that here. We have the ability to do it. And the problem is where they go to Texas and they try to get the gas that flares down there and use that to mine Bitcoin and power some of that, the servers get so hot.
Yep.
So what we propose is putting these in abandoned coal mines because they're cold. Wow. They're very, very
That's
cold
clever.
down there.
That's a clever idea.
And so it keeps it very cool so they could just operate continually, no problem, never overheat or anything like that. And, you know, to Phil's point, now I can't give financial advice. I'm the state treasurer, legally can't. But they've come up with a lot of different types of financial instruments that include Bitcoin, blended options that are not entirely Bitcoin, that are kind of
like bonds and kind of stuff?
yeah, you can mix in some equities into it and then have some exposure to Bitcoin so it's not in totality if that's something you're interested in, and just have a little bit of it. And, you know, there's kind of blended options that are, you know, they'll build these securities and stack them in differently. But there's a lot of ways to get exposure to it if you wanted to. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling nobody to do anything
Well, it's
financially.
like interesting, you know, it's interesting new financial technology, basically.
It is, and I don't think it's going anywhere. I mean, Bitcoin is certainly real. It's not going anywhere. We'd love to mine some Bitcoins here in West Virginia. And look, it's so interesting because you'll be co-located to where the energy comes from, and we can put those servers down in that abandoned coal mine
Right.
and keep them cool.
Hey, learn to mine, right?
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna mine in a mine.
West Virginia's the place to be.
Yeah.
New York is sabotaging businesses with that Trump verdict. Kevin O'Leary is like, "Wow, we're leaving."
With literal communists marching on the street.
I saw
Look,
that.
There's a reason why New York is such a basket case nowadays. The crime is through the roof, and it's a mess out there, and it's because of the leftist influence when it comes to the justice system. If you don't, they believe in restorative justice, which means we don't actually put people in jail for committing crimes. If you don't put people in jail for committing crimes, they just commit more crimes.
So let's jump to the story
That
we
keeps
have.
happening.
Let's jump to the news. It is a primary night
It sure is.
yeah.
in Michigan, and Donald Trump is currently winning with 65% of the votes to Nikki Haley's 30%. But what's really interesting here, look, Trump's going to win. Nobody cares. What's interesting is the Democratic Party.
Do you see the uncommitted votes?
Do you see who's in second place?
It is uncommitted.
Yep.
That's fascinating.
Over 20,000 votes of uncommitted. Now Biden's at 79%. Uncommitted at an earlier iteration when I think they were only 10% in. Uncommitted was at 16.4%, so it is dropping a little bit as there more votes come in. But 20,000 people said, "No, Joe Biden, we're leftists, but we hate you."
Yeah, fascinating.
That's fascinating.
Do you think a lot of those come from Dearborn, Michigan?
A lot of them, I think, are Arab
Yeah.
Americans in Michigan who really want to not have the U.S. backing
Look at
Israel.
this.
Yeah.
Uncommitted. New York Times. Now they've called it for Joe Biden, sure, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens when the rest of these votes come in. And it looks like around the Detroit area is no, there's not enough data coming in there. Where are we seeing uncommitted? It looks like
Uncommitted, I'm seeing it in the.
likely around the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, it's all over the place.
Well, Joe
Uncommitted
Biden is
basically
not-
means far leftist.
Yeah, he's not popular with the far left at all.
No, and Rashida Tlaib came out today. He's the head of her party.
I
and
love
she came out today wearing a keffiyeh in a video talking about how she voted uncommitted for Joe Biden against
Oh,
Joe Biden,
wow.
and she was happy about
I
it.
didn't see that.
Yeah.
So it's like, does the deep state anti-Israel now?
I don't know. I think that there's a lot of conflict when it comes to